amendment, Mr. Chairman, I would be happy to support it if it qualified the word glyphosate with use of glyphosate in public places or public parks or where there are children. That sort of qualification, I'll leave that with Councillor Casey. The other problem, and in terms, people are worried about health and safety, and so should we. We are legally obliged to be with the new health and safety legislation, but also health and safety is in Section 5, the all-important purposes and principles of the Resource Management Act. And so is the phrase people and communities. And too often we overlook that. Now, in regard to procurement, the council, the super city, has gone big, has gone bulk, because theoretically that's the most economic way of securing services. It's not necessarily so, and it's not necessarily the most appropriate. And so it is with dismay that I hear that legacy council policies, whether it be Auckland City or North Shore or Waitakere, have been superseded by a bulk big business approach, which may look good theoretically if you're just dealing with numbers, though some, like Councillor Watson and Councillor Walker, would challenge those assumptions, but not necessarily serve the interests of the public in terms of health and safety, and probably just as important, their well-being, their sense of well-being. So, Mr. Chairman, I support your recommendation, and I support Councillor Casey's amendment to it, because what you have done in the wording of your recommendation, if I can just see it, you've enabled the council, in terms of recommending, to acknowledge the public concerns, the real and growing concerns about glyphosate. And it's not just in Auckland, it's something that's present and growing all around the world. And I guess we could wait until the experts agree, though we know in this world of interest and money that experts don't always agree, and therefore we should be listening to the public and taking a precautionary approach. Now, I support the use of glyphosate in natural areas where there are weeds that would be otherwise impossible to deal with. But I have to say, around public parks, where there are children, where there are people who have to get their water from roof tanks, I think that we need to cut it out. Now, there's a big Latinate word called moratorium, which is a bit scary, but I think in your recommendation, Mr. Chairman, continue to monitor and review implementation. That's a signal to our officers, to our officials, to use common sense. And if a moratorium is too big and scary, how about the plain old English word, cut it out? Cut it out where it's around children or in areas where common sense would dictate that it's not really appropriate, and take a precautionary approach and use alternative methods. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to support your recommendation, and I'm happy to support Councillor Casey's enhancement of it. Thank you.
Thank you. So are the speakers to the amendment. I'm going to put the amendment. Should we just
hang on, let's have a look.
Well, the wording is as
Just been tweaked a little bit.
Oh, right, that's it.
Yeah.
How's that?
interpretation.
All right.
It's streets and local parks.
So
Streets.
can I?
Councillor Casey, this is the problem we've got. You put it up as it was, and now you can hear that it's going to cause another round of discussion. And I think we've got to go back to what you had there to start with, and I'm happy to put that.
Okay.
Okay.
Go back to what we had.
Division.
On the amendment C.
On the amendment C.
I think that, can I just... Oh.
No, sorry, we're on the division.
Sorry.
Yes, yeah.
By division. Councillor Anai.
Aye.
Councillor Brewer. Or Councillor Casey.
Yes.
Councillor Cooper.
Yes.
Councillor Darby.
For.
Councillor Filipina.
Aye.
Councillor Fletcher.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hulse.
Aye.
Councillor Crum.
For.
Councillor Lee.
Aye.
Councillor Penrose.
Lucky it's a division, isn't it?
Councillor Stewart.
He wanted to catch people out. Didn't do
Oh, the meaning is clear.
Councillor
isn't it?
Walker.
Yes.
Councillor Watson. Councillor Webster.
Yes.
Member Wilcox.
Yeah, I think
I won't have their name and light separately now.
say no, Chair.
That was close. Unanimous. That was very close. Unanimous.
So that has been passed. So that becomes the part of the substantive motion, and I still have two speakers, Councillor Penrose and Councillor Filipina. Councillor Penrose.
Yes, thanks,
Councillor.
Mr. Chair. Probably a quick question to Dean, again, as Mr. Kimpton, is glyphosate. What was the cost, estimate cost, if we were to move away from that to other mechanical means? Is it, what's the implications? Huge?
We don't know. So you're talking about a complete shift across all of Auckland of millions of dollars. And I don't know the final number. I've seen some bandied around. I'm not going to be quoted on anything, but it is a significant cost. But remember, our weed management policy asks us to think about 8 or 9 different elements, one of which is minimising the use of agri-chemicals, which we all agree with, but also to take into account effectiveness in terms of managing our environment, which is something Councillor Fletcher talked to, and it talks about value for money. So there's a number of things that we need to balance. Of course, human health impact, environmental impact, all those dimensions. So the cost of completely stopping may not result in an effective outcome with the policy, and it would also cost a significant amount of money, even if it were to be effective. So those are the things that you will debate as a chamber next year.
Thank you.
Well, who's around this table?
Whoever's-
So,
yes.
so, Mr. Chair, I'll follow on by saying that I just want to acknowledge your leadership in this role. I wasn't on that political working party, but I have had my ear to the ground, and your stewardship through this process has been outstanding. But, I'm not going to have personal attacks on this table today. But, I'm pleased that you've ruled the direction going forward, because it's the implications to the ratepayers without due course. And, I get that's healthier, but, there's the process already in place. Now, I was one of those terrible 10 councillors that I keep getting to hear about as we lead up to an election that has been bantered around for support in LTP. Well, it stopped us from going insolvent, and it gave us the working tools to keep this region going.
Yep.
And fiscally imprudent. I'm not signed up to any political party, nor am I signed up to any party going forward in this election.
Point of order, can we have
So-
the party
so-
political broadcast at
I'm
the
not here to.
appropriate
Listen, he's
time?
not signed up to a
Here to take
party.
personal
Stop,
attacks.
stop.
What I'm saying is,
So,
I'm pleased.
we'll just
I'm
go back.
pleased at the way we're going forward with this, Mr. Chair, because this is, as you say, the political working party going forward into the new term, I'm sure will take the means and the health needs of the people of Auckland into the future. So thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Filipina.
Thank you, Chair. Public participation, and we've heard this right through, not only last month when His Worship the Mayor asked around the review, but public participation is crucial. And I know when the forming of this policy in 2013, there was quite a bit of public participation prior to the 2013 policy being implemented, and listening to Mr. Kimpton around taking the views of the public, and also the C that Kathy put in is another good move in the direction. But however, I think we still need to to look at an organisation in the EPA. Mr. Kimpton, you mentioned the EPA, that we have to at least have some guidelines and a group that we can go to at least for advice. My concern through you, Chair, is what Councillor Casey mentioned around the report from our member from the Greens Party about the EPA and 2009. I'm hoping that it can be taken on board to establish, because like everything, there's two sides to every story. So, hearing 2009, that concerns me, and I'm sure it concerns people around this particular table. So I think that's one thing through you, Chair, that Mr. Kimpton can take on board to at least establish whether, in fact, there's been information and the update on information around what we've been given through the public forum. So I just leave that with there. Chair, I totally agree there shouldn't be a review, and this is why I will be supporting what you have up there, to at least in I think number 5, December 2015, there was an operational review, and as a result, we've got recommendations in B of the original paper on the agenda that we have. So you'll put that in A, Chair. And it is a matter of putting that through. And I just want, again, like everybody else around this table, I want to thank the input from our public, but also from our local boards. So the implementation is the key thing, and it's been said by several other councillors, but definitely moving forward is to implement. And I look, the objectives 3, 4, 5, 6, John mentioned those, and putting those in and implementing those as well. So definitely support. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When you ruled out the possible amendment that was going to come from Councillor Watson, it was on the issue of significance, and that was the appropriate thing to do. I would have liked to have explored at that stage a breakdown on parks vis-a-vis the use of glyphosate right across the council. Because I think if there is one area that there might be a consensus around this table, and we're aware of the appropriate use of glyphosate in rural and forest-type conditions, we know that it's an important tool for conservation groups in Auckland and indeed New Zealand. However, what I have heard over the last 25 years is a consensus around the use of glyphosate being inappropriate with playgrounds and in parks. And I would have really liked to have interrogated what the financial implications might be on the breakdown on what it might be with regards parks and playgrounds, which is something this council is investing in greatly. We're encouraging for recreational purposes, for exercise and every other way. The last thing we want to do is put any barriers up about parents having concerns over the safety of their children in playgrounds. I mean, that's just simply absurd. So I've got a real difficulty in the way that you have couched the A, B and C that we have there, because what are we telling this incoming council, whomever they might be? We're saying, oh, we've got concerns about glyphosate. Well, shouldn't we be saying where and when it's appropriate and non-appropriate? Should we not be saying, in particular, with regards to our parks investments and our playgrounds and so forth? Mr. Chairman, I'm just wondering whether you would entertain some further clarification in and around giving that guidance, expression of concern to the incoming council, that it's not quite so blunt, because at the moment it's just a really blunt, we don't like glyphosate, we're not breaking it down, we're not showing that we recognise that it has some appropriate uses. But I would really, really welcome some guidance from you, and I think you have managed this issue really well, but in and around our parks portfolio area, that we could ask an incoming council to pay special attention, because the policy is there, we've all agreed it's all about the implementation, but we haven't made much progress on parks, I've got to say, you know, over the last couple of years on this vexed issue. And we are wanting greater participation amongst all age groups in our parks. Would you not consider with C some qualification in and around the parks area expressing concern? I know that Councillor Casey was quite keen for the inclusion of that, and you ruled at the time quite properly that the amendment had been put up and we needed to vote on it. But surely common sense could prevail at this moment, and we could actually see something being further adopted to make sense of this for the incoming council.